Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Tamara Jordan, Tammy Turns Pages. I am so glad that you are here and that you decided to turn pages with me today. Today we are actually not turning pages, but instead going over my top 25 of 2025. So I've read over 200 books this year, excuse me, and I just wanted to share my favorites, my top, the loves of my life. So let's get straight into it. Get a cozy blanket and maybe a tea, and let's try to get through this. So the first book I loved this year, I'm not going to do this in any particular order, by the way. I'm just going to tell you my favorites. So if it's the first book is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This one hit me over the head. I loved every second of this book. This is a basically fall, almost like Gilmore Girls vibes. It follows our main character, Michelle and Cliff. They are, well, Michelle is just grieving from a recent divorce, but also her mother passing. And Cliff is a single dad who's also recently, or maybe less recently than Michelle, has been separated / divorced from his wife or ex-wife. And they basically find their way to each other. Cliff starts helping her out with her bed and breakfast, and they're also neighbors, and it's a lot of forced proximity. It's a lot of 90s vibes because this takes place in the 90s, and I don't know, I just really loved it. I went to see how much she has written, and she's actually written a lot of books, so now I'm going to start going down a spiral and reading all of her books that she's written. The next book is Fayne by Anne Marie MacDonald. This book follows our main character, Charlotte. She is a very smart young girl. She's hoping to be like a scientist or a teacher, like who teaches science, like maybe a biologist when she grows up. And so her dad decides to get her a tutor just to reinforce that. And when she's with her tutor, she starts realizing they uncover something, basically. It makes her question everything that's happening in her life currently and that has happened since her being born. This is very gothic. It's very moody. It's just unlike anything I've ever read before. It is a chunker, but like 722 pages, but it's worth it. It's so worth your time. This is probably the best book I read this year. I love this book. I will never stop talking about it. I will never stop recommending it to people. So Fayne is the next one. So the next book is Till Slumber Do Us Part by Megan Quinn. This one also shocked me. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I read it during the summer. This one follows our main characters. Oh, is her name Scotty? Yep, Scotty and Wilder. And Scotty, she is trying to like move up the corporate ladder kind of in a way. And she accidentally or randomly tells her boss that she is in a partnership, like she has a boyfriend, because they all go on a retreat and she's wanting to be a part of that club. And because she doesn't have a boyfriend, she makes up one. Enter Wilder. Wilder is an improv actor. He's not introduced to Scotty, but someone says, oh, I know somebody who could do that for you, who could play your pretend boyfriend. And it's Wilder. Wilder is very rich. He doesn't really care about anything except for improv. And they go to this camp because it's like a retreat for couples only in Scotty's job. And he and her pretend that they are dating. So it's basically fake dating. It's got summer camp vibes. It's funny. I mean, literally, I was laughing out loud when I was reading this book. So I really enjoyed this. I think you would enjoy it too. This was 5 stars for me. Okay, so the next book is by Judy Blume. This is the only Judy Blume book I've ever read, which is crazy. But it's called Summer Sisters. And it is about Victoria. Yeah, Victoria, and they call her Vix. And then Caitlin. Victoria and Caitlin meet each other in school and they become fast friends. They end up going to Martha's Vineyard with her family for the summer. And she actually ends up going they both go every single summer together to Martha's Vineyard. and it becomes kind of like a tradition, and something happens on one of the summers that is shown at the beginning of the book, but then we go back in time to see exactly what happened. The aftermath is shown in the beginning of the book, and then we're kind of going back in time. I really, really loved this story. I thought this was very interesting. It's definitely showing two girls and the friendship, how friendship grows and changes, and also how women, as they're growing up, how their mind changes, how their thoughts change, and what they want, what they feel, and what they think. I really enjoy this. I can understand why Judy Blume has such a cult following and people love her writing. I will definitely be reading more of this. Plus, it had very summery vibes in Martha's Vineyard during the summer. I mean, basically you're just in the summer most of the time, so this was such a vibe, especially for summer. Okay, so the next book is A Certain Hunger. This one is by Chelsea G. Summers. This one also hit me over the head. I loved this book. This book follows our main character, Dorothy. She is a food critic slash food writer. She gets into these very interesting relationships and entanglements, I would say, with men, and has very strong reactions when they don't work out and the relationship ends. That's all I'm gonna say. It's very descriptive. The writing is very like lyrical. This was giving gothic to me too, but more with the things that she was doing and the preparations that she was taking and making. This one also had a very European feel to me because most of it was taking place, like she was going back and forth. Like at one point she was like in Italy, and so she was talking about that. But I did really like this book a lot. I love the writing style. There are a couple other books of Chelsea that I do want to read because of this book, or most of the books are kind of short. So yeah, this one was 251. I loved every second of this. This is not for everyone, but it's definitely weird girl literary fiction. So this book is my next one. It is by Kaveh Akbar. It's called Martyr. This was a 5-star read for me as well this year. This book follows our main character, Cyrus. He is dealing with addiction and struggling with being an orphan. He was orphaned very early, and so he goes on this kind of quest to understand martyrdom and what it means to be a martyr. And during that quest, he meets very interesting people along the way who have dealt with very big grief in their life, or very large forms of grief in their life. And it shapes how he experiences his grief and is experiencing his grief. Oh my gosh, the writing is so beautiful. I would recommend this to anybody. It's beautiful. It's one of the best books I've ever read in my life, and I've read a lot of books. Okay, so the next book is The Favorites. This one is by Lane Fargo. This is the only Lane Fargo book I've read also, and I plan on reading more after reading this book. This book follows our main characters, Katerina and Heath. They are childhood friends. One is kind of from the wrong side of the tracks, and the other one, Katerina, is a little bit more affluent. They are both figure skaters. The story moves with them starting their skating journey all the way until they're like at the precipice of their career. So there's a lot of drama in this. It's very like 90s vibes. I think this does take place in the 90s. It's very like, I don't know, the whole time I was reading this, I kept thinking of like Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding. You're getting different perspectives from like all the different skaters around them, talking about like who hated who and like who was sleeping with who, and things like that. And just like that person was actually like taking steroids, and that person was so it's all gossipy because it's basically told in interview style. I loved this book. I love this so much. This is such a fun read. I think this should be a 8-part series, like a limited series, because this would be so much fun to watch. Okay, the next book is Between Friends and Lovers. I also bedazzled this. This book follows our main character, Jojo. She's a doctor. She has a best friend named Ezra. Ezra is her childhood best friend, but also she has a huge crushing him. She's in love with him. And he's never given her the time of day. He just considers her a friend. She is in the friend zone, and she's going to stay there, according to Ezra. She meets Malcolm when Ezra decides that he's going to get married. And so she decides, I'm just going to let this go. And she opens herself up. She meets Malcolm, and she decides to give him a chance. And it's just a really interesting storyline because it's kind of back and forth a little bit. There is somewhat of a love triangle, and she's trying to figure out if she needs to give this new person a chance, or if she really, is still in love with Ezra and still wants to give that a chance. I really like this book a lot. I really thought this was great writing. I read this probably in like a day and a half because I wanted to know what was happening. I needed to know what was happening with these characters. And I don't know, I just really, really loved this. I would definitely recommend this to like anyone who wants almost like a realistic love story, because this is, this felt very real to me. So the next book is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This was a 5-star read for me. I love this book so much, and I cannot wait for the next one to come out. This one follows the main character, Aiden. He's a radio host, and he does this show called Heartstrings. The main character, Lucy, her daughter, calls in for her, unbeknownst to her. So, and she just talks about like, oh, my mom's been divorced for a while, and she hasn't dated, and this and that. So Aiden decides, okay, this is an interesting story. He decides to ask her on because his listeners really got caught up in that story. So she ends up going on and kind of becoming a co-host with him for a little while during this time. It's just so good. The amount of like reactions I had when I was reading this book. It's just so cute. And then I also listened to this on audio. And when you listen to it, you're hearing him like on the radio, right? You're hearing it on the radio. It's just like takes you into the story. I just felt like that much deeper in the story. I love this. I loved the banter between them. I loved the genuineness of the story and how the relationship genuinely evolved. I loved it. This was great. 5 stars. It's actually 6,000 stars. I love this. So the next book is Katabasis. This is by R.F. Kuang. Incredible. This is a longer book. This is one of maybe like the 4th book I've read by R.F. Kuang. So this is 1980 Cambridge. It follows our main characters, Alice and Peter. They have to, for different reasons, have to go down into purgatory, basically. They have to do the 7 layers of hell, right? And they have to find their professor and try to get him out. This is fantasy. It is beautifully written. It is very well, in my opinion, very well done, very well researched. And I loved every second of this. This was incredible. This was just amazing. This is getting hype, and it's getting hype for a reason. This is incredible. So yeah, this was another one of my 5 stars. So the next book is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is not my first Stephen Graham Jones, but it is definitely my favorite. I gave this 5 stars. I love this book, and I was reading it actually at I think in my mind, a perfect time. I was in Wyoming and Montana, and this takes place in Montana. This basically starts in the now timeline. There are 2 timelines. This journal is uncovered by, I think his name is Arthur Buchrane. He is a priest, and someone now in 2022, that's the timeline here, uncovers his journal of things that have happened and were happening in 1912 in his church and around his church and in Montana. And it's very eerie and very just bizarre happenings that are going on. And it starts to talk about, the journal starts to talk about this one mysterious man. Later on, he is referred to as Goodstab. He is a Native American who has a very interesting story to tell. I loved this. I ate this up every single crumb. I wanted it to be longer, and it's already 430 something pages. And I thought this could be longer only because I wanted to continue going with this book. I love this. I would recommend this to anybody and everybody. This is if you're wanting historical fiction, but with a slice of like horror. And there's a lot of like historical, like really, I thought really historically accurate. I was picturing, maybe because I was there too, but I was picturing these things that were happening in this book like vividly. And I just love this book so much. This is such a great book. So I definitely would tell you to read this one as well. The next book is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. This is my only Coco Mellers book that I've read so far. And I loved this one as well. This is about three sisters who are dealing with grief and the loss of their fourth sister. But it goes into each of their lives and kind of dissects what's happening in their lives individually. And so they each kind of have a chapter, and then it goes back and another chapter for each, and then another chapter like that in the storyline. And it's just interesting how they're all connected and grieving, but they're all grieving very differently. This is a sad book. This is a very just emotionally charged book. This is, I would say, a literary sad girl book. And I loved everything that was happening in this book. Although very sad, it just worked really well. The writing, I thought, flowed very nicely, and the subject matter was handled with care. I loved this book. I gave this book 5 stars also. I think I gave it 5 stars. Maybe I gave it 4.5 actually. But I loved this book, and I would recommend this as the next book in my top 25. The next book on my list is keeping kind of with that same theme. This is Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. I've read every single thing that Sally Rooney has written. This one is high on my list. I love this book. Still, my favorite is Normal People, but hey, you can't mess with a good thing, right? So, it's the best for a reason, in my opinion. This follows 2 brothers. One of them is a chess player who is possibly gonna stop playing chess. He doesn't know. And then another one is 10 years older. He's 32, and he is trying to figure out his life and his obligations and his duties in regards to people in his life. So this is a book that is very like mundane. Nothing's happening, but everything's happening. It's just, you just want it to keep going. I loved this book. The next book is Bring Me Your Midnight. This one is by Rachel Griffin. This book follows our main character, Tana. She is a witch. She's living on this area called the Witchery. It's where all the witches live, I guess. And then there's also a mainland. She is betrothed to one of the mainlanders, the governor's son, basically. His name is Landon. But she's obviously not in love with him, but she knows that she has to do it so that they can have an alliance, the mainland and the Witchery. One night, she is meant to give away her powers. They give away their powers every night, and she is meant to do that, and she misses that ritual. Because of that, she realizes that she is more powerful than she even imagined. She also meets Wolf there. He's a very enigmatic character and being, and he shows her things about herself that she also didn't know she was capable of. This is really good. It's fantasy. It's a fantasy standalone from my understanding so far. I loved this book. It was so moody and so just like beautiful. And I feel like I read this at the right time too, because I read this when we were getting a lot of rain and a lot of fog, and it was just great. So this was great. I loved it. So the next book is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This takes place in 1980. It's the story of Joan. She's an astronaut, or she's kind of aspiring to be an astronaut in the beginning, and it goes through her life. She definitely has secrets that she's hiding. She definitely has trauma that she's working through. This is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I mean, in my opinion, one of her best. Not my favorite TJR, but one of my favorite. My favorite probably is still Evelyn Hugo. I love that book so much. But this is great. It gave me very 80s vibes. I loved the female aspect, you know, the female astronaut aspect. I thought that was beautiful. I loved the LGBTQIA plus rep in this book. I thought that was beautiful. Yeah, I love this book. I thought it was very heartwarming. It is a bit traumatic. It is also sad, but also the way the story is told and the way it's told through Joan's eyes and her ups and downs. It's just beautiful to follow through this story. So this is one of my other favorite books of this year, and I would definitely recommend this to anybody. The next book is The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. This might be my favorite book of all time. Maybe. This is a reread. I've read this book every single year since it came out. I've read this 4 times. No, I have read this 5 times because I read it twice when the first year it came out. I was like, I love this book so much, I'm reading it again. Not like right after, but like maybe 6 months later, I read it again. So yeah, I've read this book 5 times. I'm obsessed with it. This is my favorite book probably of all time. So this book follows our main character, Elle. She is a mother and a wife, and she goes to Cape Cod, a really small little area in Cape Cod that her family's been owning for their whole life, every summer. And her best friend, Jonas, goes with her. And the things that happen during that trip, and really during 24 hours. So it's like a 24-hour period. It starts one way, and then 24 hours later, it finishes. But we're also getting some timelines from the past, how she met her husband, you know, when she had her children, her mom's story a little bit. So it's her growing up. It's so beautifully woven together. It's, oh my gosh. If this could be not even a movie, I think I'd want this as a TV show, but if this could be a TV show and done well, actually, do I want to be able to see this? Because this is in my mind so vividly that maybe it will ruin it, but this is just the most incredible story ever. There are a lot of triggers in this book. There is a lot of trauma in this book. Please, if you are going to read this, check your triggers. I love this book for the rest of my life till the end of days. Okay, so the next book is The Island of Last Things. This is by Emma Slowly. This was given to me as an ARC, and I am really excited that it was, because I was not sure how I was going to feel about this. So this book follows our main character, Camille. She is a zookeeper at like the last zoo in the world, pretty much. Besides, there's one in Paris, except the Paris one ends up closing down. And because of that, there's a person named Sailor who comes to this zoo. Sailor starts working at the zoo that Camille is working at. This is just it's such a weird story, and like the premise is crazy, like, because it's all these zoo animals. They're the only animals left on the planet, and it's the only zoo left on the planet, and it's just like, it's such a weird concept. It's just, I just loved the writing. I loved the way this felt very like pressure cooker in a way, because like things were happening that you were like, oh God, what, like, is that gonna, you know, like it just felt very intense, the whole story. And there's lots of reveals about Camille and about Sailor throughout the time that they're getting to know each other. Sailor is more like brash and bold and wild, and then Camille is very like timid and calm, but Sailor allows Camille to be more open, just more free. It brings it out of Camille, but to the point where it could be detrimental for Camille's future. Very dystopian, like I said, apocalyptic kind of. So I really like this one a lot. This was great. The next book I loved this year was My Sister the Serial Killer. This book follows our main character, Corady. She is a nurse. She is kind of timid and shy, and she's considers herself, and other people consider her, not super attractive, plain. She's often getting into situations where she's being unappreciated because of her looks. And her sister, however, is very beautiful. Her name is Ayola. She is receiving opposite treatment from other people. Pretty privileged, kind of. She's able to get whatever she wants. She is living a completely different life than her sister. Her sister, Corady, she's basically our main character, the nurse. she is Ayola's voice of reason, because Ayola has demons that she is trying to fight off. This takes place in Nigeria. This does have a very interesting like story behind it. It's giving kind of like a folktale almost. I thought the writing was sharp. It was funny and sad and scary and beautiful. And oh my gosh, it was just like enthralling. You wanted to see what was happening. You wanted to know who was doing what and when and why and how. And it was just really an interesting story. Unlike anything I've ever read before, I would definitely recommend this. Definitely check the triggers before. There's some interesting content in here. Okay, the next book is The Lovely War. And this book I don't actually have with me. I gave it to somebody because I loved it so much. It was my favorite, so I'll put it around here somewhere. But this book is following Hazel, James, Aubrey, and Colette. Hazel and James are together, or trying to be together, and Aubrey and Colette are also trying to be together. It's basically the story. It's historical fiction, but it's also like fantasy, because we also, and a little bit of like Greek influence in there, because we are following Aphrodite, and she is on trial for the crimes that she's committed, alleged crimes, I should say, that she has committed on these two couples. Knocked my socks off. I mean, I don't even, historical fiction is not really my bag, but this book, I will never stop telling people to read this book. It's so beautiful, sad, and it takes place during like wartime. So it's definitely has a lot of trauma in it as well, but it's so beautiful. It's worth a read if you haven't read it. The next one, We Used to Live Here, and that one is by Marcus Kluwer. This book is horror. It is kind of a thriller as well. It's following our main characters, Eve and Charlie. They have just bought their dream home, and they are super excited. They've moved in. They're all settled in. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Someone comes one day when they're cooking dinner, when she's cooking dinner, and knocks on the door and says, "Hey, we used to live here. Can we come in?" And from there, it just spirals. It's out of control. I mean, the things that are happening the whole time, it's like a car crash, but in slow motion. That kind of thing. Oh man. Like, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, like, she said yes, like they could come in, which, it's going to be a movie soon with Blake Lively. It's kind of interesting too, because there's like a little bit of Morse code in there. So if you're listening to it, I was listening and reading. I was reading on my Kindle. You can hear the Morse code in there, and then it's like you can translate the messages. That's what I did. I translated the messages after every chapter, because that's when the Morse code is, and it's like creepy messages. Like by the end of it, you're kind of like, what? So I loved it. It was definitely worth it. A twisty, turny, wild ride, and I loved every second of it. And the next one is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I've read a few of Frederick Bachman's books, and this one was by far my favorite. This book follows our main character, Louisa. She is a troubled teen. She has just turned 18, and she is basically homeless. She gets a hold of a painting and tries to figure out what the painting's meaning is by trying to go find the painter. She's able to track down one of the painter's friends, and they go on a journey to meet the painter. I hope I explained that correctly. It is such a beautiful story. The journey to get to the painter is, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. And it's just basically a story within a story, because there's 4. So the friends' names are Ted, Ollie, Joar, and then there's the painter. One of the friends she's on the train with, and they start going through their friendship and their connection to the painter and that painting in question. And it's just really beautiful. It's just really beautiful. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I want you just to read it. It was one of the best books I read this year. So the next book is The Will of the Many. This one is political intrigue. This is fantasy. This is power and will, and oh my gosh, this is kind of Gladiator-esque in a way, but there are so many different levels, different almost trials too. The world building, in my opinion, wasn't very hard for me to understand. It's a longer book. I've actually borrowed it out to someone else because I was like, this book is amazing, you need to read it, and they're going to read it over their Christmas break. I did not want the book to end. The main character's motivations and the way that the main character is struggling and the trials that the main character has to go through, it's just, and then there's obviously a huge reveal. It's unlike anything I've read in terms of fantasy. I loved it. All right, the next book is Talking at Night, and this is, I would say like literary fiction. This follows Rosie and Will. They are childhood best friends turned sweethearts. They definitely have feelings for each other, but the feelings are never really allowed. And because of that, their relationship ebbs and flows. It follows Rosie and throughout her life all the way, I think, through college. They start, I think, when they're like 12 or something. And then as well follow Will and then his life all the way until, I think it stops when they're in their 40s, or Will is about to turn 40. And just the amount of trials that they both go through. This is not a light book. It is heavy. They are both going through a lot of traumatic things. The whole book. It felt like Sally Rooney, and I think they even say if you love Sally Rooney, you would like this book. I agree with that. It felt like Normal People a lot. Especially in the beginning when they're just starting to get together. I felt like it felt a lot like Normal People. It is traumatic and sad, and there's a lot of yearning and wanting, and which I think is beautiful, but also tragic. I would say check your triggers before you read this book, but it is well worth it. It's a long span of time, and I think I read this in like one day. I needed to see where they ended up. This wouldn't be for everybody. If you like things wrapped up in a bow, this might not be for you. I couldn't get enough of it. I read it last year in the beginning of the year. I loved it. The next book is Remarkably Bright Creatures. This is about Tova and Marcellus. Tova is a widow, and she is still grappling with her son's disappearance like 30 years ago. She took a job at an aquarium where she meets Marcellus. Marcellus is an octopus who has a conscience and is highly intelligent and knows a lot. And they find a way to communicate. It's wonderful. That's all I'm going to say. It's wonderful. It was 5 stars for me. Read it. Read the book. It's so, so, so good. And last, but certainly not least, is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. This book, again, I read in the beginning of the year last year. I think I read it in, January, February. This book is so incredible. I gave it to somebody. I own it, but I gave it to someone so that they could read it. It's pretty thick. My camera died mid-sentence. Sorry about that. I'm going to just finish this right here. I'm on my phone. Sorry if the quality is a little bit different. The fog has also come in, so I mean the lighting is terrible. Sorry. But anyway, the last book, like I said, was The Reformatory. This book follows our main character Robbie, and he is basically defending his sister. She is being basically accosted by a young white boy, and because it's Jim Crow, South Florida, he tries to help his sister. And instead gets detained and then thrown into a reformatory. It's just so well put together. It's spooky and dramatic and like real life horror, the unspeakable horrors that are happening to them in this reformatory. And then not to mention the reformatory is haunted. So that's fun. And they will not leave Robbie alone. So yeah, but that's it. That was number 25. I hope you liked this video. These were my favorite books for the whole year. They were incredible. Any of them, I will link all of them below so you can like do a little bit more research on the books and whether you want to read them or not. Also, I would check triggers for every book, just so that you know, are informed before you go in. But if you like this video, please don't hesitate to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next / last one. It will be a little bit more chill because I don't want to say it, but I think I'm getting sick for my break, which is terrible. Have a good day. Bye.